Another way that I've used VoiceThread in face-to-face classes is for feedback on drafts. So in all of my classes, students have to write multiple drafts of their essays. And whether that's creative writing or regular, academic writing, they all have to do drafts. And so what we're looking at here is a fiction piece by one of my creative writing students last spring. And the way we do workshops is we do them in class, and everyone is supposed to contribute. But I told students that if they wanted additional feedback from me, that they could upload, they had to then create their own slide, upload their papers to VoiceThread, and I would read them over on a page-by-page basis and give them additional feedback. So this next slide, I think, is an example of one of the reasons why I think this is so great for giving feedback on papers, because I think a lot of us spend a lot of time writing comments on papers, which, in my mind, verbal comments are a lot more effective, because you can, in this way, look at this paper with the student. They can see what you're looking at, and you can also write on the paper. And of course, as we all know, that tone of voice is easier to convey when you're actually talking as opposed to writing comments. I'll just play you a little bit of this.
On this page, I'm really curious to know, what it is that, so you're saying here that you thought you were in heaven. So what does heaven look like to little you, Chantal? And I imagine that it has something to do with your expectations based on the Parent Trap. But really, other than...
So that's from a creative writing class, but you can obviously do that with any class that you have. And then today, I ended up, so I've had the flu for the last couple of days, and so I didn't go in today, which was, I have a once-a-week class for creative writing this semester. And, when I realized I was not going to be able to make it, I thought, what am I going to do? Because we have such a tight workshop schedule, and there just really is no room to push everything back a week. So I thought, well, why don't I just put the whole class online? And so that's what I did. So I asked, so basically I made a voice thread, including picture of cute kittens to entice people to look at it. And just had a note, here's, I'm sick, here's, I asked students to reflect on some of the things that they've read. And for me today, this was actually a huge takeaway, because I was feeling a little bit cranky with the student performance as far as comments had gone throughout this class over the semester. Granted, it's only week 4 and students are still warming up, but I was really underwhelmed by how much engagement they were showing. And then today, when I had asked students to reflect on VoiceThread instead of in person, the comments that I got from students were so much more substantive.
The piece that resonated with me most was Just Walk On By Brent Staples. The reason why this resonates with me is because growing up in a completely white Southern family, I myself am guilty of assuming the worst about people that are not my race. And
so that, while not a desirable sentiment, is certainly one that we don't often get students to talk about. And as her comments went on, she and many other students were really wrestling with this idea of how does the media portray African Americans, what makes them frightening? And that level of engagement is one you don't often get in that face-to-face class. I think students are just afraid to have those conversations often.
That's such a good point, Kim. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I think it's just great to create a safe space for students where, especially when you're in this kind of blended zone where you can come back together and try to get them to wrestle with those questions that they're willing to out there and figuring out that.
I think that students will comment as you have, Kim. They make comments they won't make in class. They go deeper and they really think about what they're saying. And they said, this is hard to listen to. Some of you may not want to, but this is what I'm thinking about. Yeah. So it has to be.
Cool.
Yeah, and then so moving on to online classes. These are some of the things I've done in my online classes. So I use it for introductions. I use it for peer review. So this was an example of an individual essay from my English 330 class, where I asked students to read their draft aloud on VoiceThread, with or without the webcam. It didn't matter. It's more for the purpose of hearing the essay to hear how it sounds, but also to ask thoughtful, intentional questions about it.
The feedback I would like to receive from you is whether or not my essay sounds persuasive, if I made clear and valid points, and I'd also like to know if I came across as too aggressive in condemning the NFL, and if the essay is well balanced in between quotes, statistics, and the general ideas. Thank you so much for your time.
So she's got clear ideas here about the kinds of feedback that she wants. And then, you know, moving on, granted her audio.
Domestic violence in the NFL. Turning a blind purple eye.
But she's for sure being intentional about how she's reading, which I think is another big point. Okay, I think I've hit most of the ways in which I've used VoiceThread in classes. Anybody have questions?
Okay, this is my question. How do you upload a paper? Let's go back to 101.
Yeah, so uploading a paper is as easy as when you go to create a new VoiceThread, and let me see if I can do it. So you hit create, and then when it says add media or drop files here, they can drag and drop, or they just can click on add media, go to my computer, and select a document.
So you can, put Word documents on there. Is that what
Yeah. Yeah, and the great thing about the Word documents, Claudia, is it uploads it on a page-by-page basis. So like I was doing with that one student, drawing on their paper, like in this area, you know, you can circle things and you can comment on things that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. That solves a problem with the research papers, pre-commenting.
Yeah, no, it's great. It took me a long time to figure that out.
Thank you, Kim.
I think Kim was the one that taught me how to do it too.
I thought it had to be PowerPoint. Okay, great.
If you, just a tip, if you're uploading the Word docs, since they go in a portrait view and VoiceThread is actually landscape, they're really tiny. So be sure you point out the how to zoom in on a VoiceThread slides. Just real simply leave a comment pointing that out to your students so they know that's there. Thank you for sharing. You know, it's really interesting because I've worked with, I mean, over the years as I've been using with VoiceThread and working with different faculty, there's been so many English instructors who have looked at VoiceThread and said, oh, well, I can't use that because I teach writing. And so when I get this amazing example of the benefits that reading a paper and listening to someone else read their paper and all the different areas of growth that come from that, it's fascinating. So thanks for sharing.
My pleasure.